This is pretty wild. We got Rutan here. We got Wisdom here. We got Smith here.
Oh, you mean Steve? I thought you meant you got Rutan here and Wisdom.
That's what you heard him right. You heard him right.
Hey, we got the 6-pack here. We got this of Bud Light.
Stop talking about my stomach.
Bud Light, watered down Bud Light, and we got the sun-kissed orange and some Girl Scout cookies
and coffee.
So Carl Albright, man, Undersheriff Albright. What do we got going on, guys? I mean, what is this about?
Let's take it step by step here, real quick. Unethical.
Well, I don't know if it's an issue of ethics.
Yes, it is.
Well, no, it's definitely the very first thing that we can agree on.
We shut you down on that one, Steve.
Yeah,
sorry.
The very first thing we can agree on is that it was unethical. Now, here's part of my problem. Is that behavior unbecoming? Is an ethics violation behavior unbecoming?
Well, yeah. I mean, he did it in his position, his official capacity.
All right. So I would say that alone should cost someone their job. Just behavior unbecoming.
Well, he lost his job for 2 weeks, unpaid.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things that bothers me is I hear a lot of people go, well, he's a good guy. He's done a lot of good things. I agree. He is a good guy. He's done a lot of good things. Wait, like I've said before, there's not anybody that's 100% bad or anybody 100% good. But the fact of the matter is everything we do has a responsibility, right? For every right, there's a responsibility. So if somebody does something good, then they deserve the responsibility of the accolades that come with it. But if somebody does something bad, then they deserve to be responsible for that as well. So just because somebody's done 100 things good, that doesn't give them a get-out-of-jail-free card to kill somebody because they've done so much good. We have to answer for each of the individual acts that we do. That doesn't mean that all the good things that he did, we can't say that they were good, but the one thing that he did that was bad, he has to be responsible for.
All right, Steve, you pulled it up on your phone, didn't you?
I have it.
Why don't you read it? Read the article. Okay, so this article was by the Hillsdale Daily News.
Yep.
Corey Murray wrote it. This was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yesterday, yes, it hit yesterday.
It hit yesterday. It was pretty wild.
It's all over the internet.
I mean, social media is calling for heads. So
literally.
It's the modern proverbial mob at the front door with pitchforks and torches.
It would be the equivalent today.
Yeah. You want to read some of that, Steve?
Yeah, well, we can do something. We'll do a little paraphrasing. In case some people don't know, we can just start at the top. The Hillsdale County Sheriff Tim Parker announced Wednesday morning that his undersheriff, Carl Albright, was suspended for 2 weeks in August without pay for signing the county treasurer's name to paperwork needed to purchase 2 new patrol vehicles in July. And it goes on to say that Parker said Albright's duties included the possession of paperwork for purchasing patrol vehicles, that in the middle of July, Albright had received a notification from Ford Motor Credit that the paperwork and its first check were due at their office by July 22nd. And this is Albright stating from a letter addressed to the citizens of Hillsdale County, which I could not find anywhere. If anybody has that, I'd like to see it.
I don't know if they sourced it. They probably didn't.
Yeah.
It's not there.
I was advised by Ford Motor Credit that if these documents were not in the Ford Motor Credit office by July 22nd, that the finance contract would be voided and the application process would need to begin again, Albright stated. If these processes were to have started all over again, the interest rates would have been increased rates at a higher cost to taxpayers, Albright also said. Parker estimated that the increased rate would have cost thousands of dollars or more.
And just real quick, does he have a degree in accounting? Is that really his expertise? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. He does handle a budget. So
yeah,
just
well,
to be fair.
for the sheriff's department.
Yeah, to be fair.
Okay.
With checks, yeah.
Okay. I thought that's what we had a treasurer for, but go ahead.
Right. Well, Albright says here that he did attempt to contract the treasurer, Stephenie Kyser, to get her signature on the information-only form to advise the U.S. the U.S. IRS.
Wait a minute, IRS.
Yeah.
Okay, so the IRS is involved too now. Okay.
Well, we have to tell them that they want those checks to be tax exempt, so that we need to inform the IRS.
Okay, so those are IRS forms now too.
Yes, but he was unable to reach her. And this is quoting him. I then signed the treasurer's names on the forms July 18th without her permission, Albright said. These forms were then sent via certified mail to Ford Motor Credit and arrived on July 22nd.
So they were put in the mail, a federal thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Certified mail.
Mm-hmm.
Kyser said in a telephone interview Wednesday that she discovered the signatures when Ford Motor Credit sent the paperwork back to her office.
And she must have realized that those weren't her signatures.
Yeah, it must have looked a little funny.
I'll say this. This happened back last month.
Yeah.
So
No. They happened
July.
in July.
He was suspended in
He was
August.
suspended in August.
Okay, so this happened within the last 60 days approximately, right?
I'd
60,
even
75
stretch it
days?
to 90. Last
Yeah,
90
you're
days.
getting closer to 90 days, within the last 90
Okay.
days.
The Hillsdale County Board of Commissioners was advised on the issue, and after consulting with a legal counsel, it was determined that Albright did not violate any criminal statutes by signing this form. I wonder if it was a real lawyer.
Or
I mean,
if
because-
it was a local one.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't.
How much more of the article is there, Steve?
Just a little
Very
bit.
little. It's a very short article.
Yeah, I thought it was. Okay, so we don't even bother. They can go to Hillsdale Daily News and see this article. It's all over social media as well. So the first thing I did when I saw this, I called Rutan. Of course, he's at the fair board and he can't get the calls in. He's busy and stuff. I couldn't believe it to seeing this because Undersheriff Albright's in a position of trust, and it's for us this is an unusual situation to see someone of that kind of caliber being in the newspaper for something of distrust, right?
I agree.
So like it was kind of
Well,
shocking to our
to-
community,
to-
right?
He does say, I take my oath of office very seriously and will strive forth to earn the trust of the citizens of Hillsdale County, which I have the honor and privilege to serve.
But trust is like a tree. You plant it and it grows and it becomes a 3-foot thick oak. If you take a chainsaw and cut it down, you don't get to set the tree back up on the stump again. You have to plant it all over again and let the tree grow from beginning, number one. Number two, signing someone else's name to something could be described as forgery.
Well, let me break down the article, though,
but
John, before we get into that.
Okay, but anytime you do something like that, does it fall into thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal? Which
Of
one does it
course.
fall into?
Lie, yeah.
Thou shalt not lie, right?
Yeah, that's we talk about that all the
Okay.
time. Lie, kill, and steal for
Okay,
local
so
government.
if that falls under the category of a lie, then what we have to do is when you lie, anything you've said is impeachable. Let's just put that out there.
All right, so breaking down that article. Well, after seeing this online, of course, I called you, John, and it was probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon or so, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I get up to the fair board, meet up with you. You obviously got 50 calls on it.
Oh, the phone was blowing up.
Running for sheriff. This is something that obviously
relevant,
that's,
yeah.
relevant to us.
Okay,
And-
first off, I don't want this to become, because there's other people that are going to go, well, that's the only thing he's running
That's
on.
right.
No, I've got a platform. I've had a platform since 2016. This is
Amen.
not what I'm running on.
You've had a platform longer than that,
Yes.
if you really want to look at that. But no, so this is this is pretty wild for us, and I get there and
Normally you hear stuff like this happening in Philadelphia or
Or
Chicago,
Baltimore.
Larger
Yeah.
cities, of course.
Yeah.
well,
Nothing usually this drastic, but yes, you hear those types of corruption
in
things.
the normal people that are on the horn checking this stuff out. Obviously, we're doing all the phone calls. I called Stephenie yesterday myself directly. She said she's still trying to get her head wrapped around this, which is kind of weird because this was if this happened a couple months ago, it seemed like this would be kind of a squash thing.
Yeah,
I
she would have an answer right away.
Yeah, so like everybody's kind of like.
Yeah, so why did this come out now?
Well-
why was this?
Well, I spoke with Corey, and Corey did admit to me that he could have wrote the article slightly better. He did write that the commissioners sought legal counsel. Well, today I talked with Mark Wiley. Everybody's directing me to Mark Wiley too, all the commissioners and stuff like that. They all,
Okay.
don't get me wrong, they have all their opinion. I've talked to all of them today. But they direct me to Mark because he's kind of the one on top of this with the legal stuff. But he said that they didn't talk to legal source because they have no authority on the legal source of this. So like they can't control what goes on in that department. That's for Sheriff Tim Parker to deal with.
So you think they obtained like a free consultation or something?
No, what I'm saying is like the article wasn't. Mark said the article was wrong.
Oh.
Okay, so it was written wrong. So we're all interpreting. Like most of the county commissioners didn't even know what was going on.
So
We
what
knew
you're
it before they
saying
did.
is what we got in the news that we are supposed to take as truth isn't even truth
It's-
about something
it's-
that happened that's not truth.
Well, Corey did admit that it was quickly written. So, I mean, I'm going to have to. I think they need to come up with another story. That's what I'm thinking.
It sounds like they have to come up with a whole brand new story because
potentially.
How come you didn't write the article like a month ago?
Well,
Probably because he didn't know about it a month
I think
ago.
it was.
Right.
I think all this stuff was in house a month ago, so I don't
Okay.
think that.
So the public wasn't supposed to know, and something was an impetus that pushed it so that the public had to know.
Well, I mean,
That's
like,
what I'm thinking.
well, I don't know if in any of these departments, say like it was, let's just say it's county clerk's office, and they made it. Well, obviously we think this is a criminal offense, but let's just say they did something that wasn't necessarily a criminal offense.
Well, Black's Law Dictionary thinks it's a criminal offense too, but
Well, let's just say if it wasn't a criminal offense, they would keep that in house. You would get reprimanded. Does that get publicly put out there? No. I mean, like, not everything gets publicly put out.
no. However, when a breach of the trust has happened, the quicker you can get it to the public,
The better.
let the public know,
I agree.
the better.
I agree. I agree.
because the only thing we have is faith in the government. And if they breach the trust, there is no longer any faith.
Okay, so I speaking with Corey, speaking with all the county commissioners, speaking with Stephenie Kyser, I spoke with a lot of people. The only person I haven't spoke to is Sheriff Tim Parker and Scott Hepner, Chief Hepner, because this did happen in Chief Hepner's
In the city of Hillsdale.
in the city of Hillsdale.
I'd be curious to know what he'd say.
Yeah, so if I want to know from a cop's perspective if this is legal or not legal.
I'd
in
like to
his
know what the
opinion.
Attorney General would say. I'm just saying.
So come to find out that all these county commissioners were told by Mark Wiley that since there's no financial gain on this signature, this forgery, that it's not a crime.
Okay, so Mark Wiley is the one that came up with that, not legal counsel. That because in the news story, when you read it, it sounds like legal counsel said that there's no crime
That's the way it read.
because there was no intent for financial gain.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the county attorney that said
I mean,
it.
did I take that the wrong way?
No, yeah, like they said,
Because that's how
the way it
I
read to
took.
me.
That's the way it read to me.
they read the county commissioners, so I assumed all the county commissioners knew what was going on right from the rip.
Right.
So when I start calling all of them, they were kind of confused and
Oh, so some of them didn't know?
most of them didn't know.
Oh, so it almost sounds like the Anthony Hart case, like when only one commissioner knew.
Oh no, wait. Let me slide this back. They did know 2 or 3 months ago what was going on. They didn't know that this came back out and it got aired back out. So when I started asking, they were kind of confused on like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I thought this was a.
I thought we swept that under the rug. Or I mean, I thought we got rid of that. Or I mean, we thought we dealt with that already.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly it, John. So they thought the thing was open and shut, kind of like a done deal. Now,
Nothing to see here. Move on.
well, I'm not gonna hate on the county commissioners too much here because
I'm not hating on them. I'm just
I
I'm a little punchy too. So
I just think that they're in a crossfire between two departments. I think we got the Treasury Department and we got the Sheriff Department, and I would be pissed if I was in the Treasury Department as well if they forged my name. This is something that is unacceptable, in my opinion.
a person's signature and their character are their property.
Yeah,
It is theirs.
I mean, can you imagine signing your mom's name on your report card? I mean, you're going to get suspended from school.
Well, and Carl did get suspended for 2 weks.
Yeah, but that's
Naughty
not.
boy.
We're talking about legal matter
Yeah.
here, right? Like
Right.
whether it's legal or not legal.
Okay,
This is,
now let's talk about this idea that because it wasn't for financial gain, that somehow it's okay, and that the intentions, because the good intentions were there.
Well, even lack of like if you don't lose the money, that's a financial gain. If he would have not done that, they would have lost a bunch of money.
But here's the other thing.
Saving money is a gain.
But here's the other thing. At the fair, there's car dealers there, and I've been talking to them about financial paperwork like that and stuff too. And there's some things that came up on social media too about why didn't somebody in the treasurer's office have that all under control? And as far as I know from the treasurer's office, they're usually right on top of stuff when it comes to the finances of Hillsdale. They're usually right on top of it. So if that's the case, that would say to me that it's almost like they're saying that somehow Stephenie dropped the ball, and I just don't think that's the case.
The only thing that would make sense to me is if she didn't want to sign it.
For some reason, that has not been revealed.
Well, gentlemen, let me clear the air first before we jump deep into whether this is legal or not, because that's where this is going to ride.
Let's clear the air. Turn the fan on.
Let's clear the air. What I think, and I believe this is to be true, and I'm got to say I think, because I'm not 100% accurate, but I'm probably 80% accurate here, is
that means you're 20% inaccurate.
Yeah, exactly. This wasn't open and shut per se by the county commissioners. From my understanding, Stephenie didn't get the formal apology from the sheriff department.
As it said in
So
the article.
she's still upset about the situation. It wasn't like the county commissioners thought it was done deal.
Mm-hmm.
So they just moved on, assuming that the punishment was correct for whatever he did wrong. Everybody thought everything was fine and whatnot. I think Stephenie is out seeking something further, whether it be legal action.
Oh, well, see, that would make sense. The reason why it come out now, because somebody's trying to get ahead of something.
Well, the official story was that Carl felt guilty that he had to let the people know.
Hey, I'm going to say this right now. Kudos to Carl, because it is tough to be in that position and eat crow.
But
that is not
But if
comfortable.
if that official story is true, yeah, kudos to him. But a lot of people believe that Sheriff Parker and Undersheriff Albright put that story out to get on top of it, above Stephenie
damage
Kyser.
control, shall we say.
What they officially said was, Parker said that the sheriff's office strives for transparency with the public, which led him to release the details.
Well, if it's transparent, then it wouldn't have taken this long for it to come out, right?
So they're trying to get above the treasurer above Stephenie.
Sounds like they're trying to get ahead of
of the story. That's right. And so now here we are with the commissioners going, what the heck's going on? Because now these stories are coming out, and
because
they're kind of in the crossfire now.
It sounds to me like my representative wasn't told the whole truth. And let's be clear, when you go into court, you have to promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because a perfect lie is all truth with one thing left out, right? So if my representative on the county board from my district wasn't told the whole truth, then she was lied to.
I think it was Adam or Shawnee or someone earlier today at the Fair Board made a great point, was when they were asking their person that represents them about it, they were saying, go ask Mark. And that's what they were telling me today,
Mark's
too.
not who represents me. I didn't vote for Mark.
That's exactly right. I was like, that's a good point. So who, like Tim, I called Tim Shaw today, and he said he called me back.
Here's your representative.
Yeah, so he should be telling me what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know. He's referring to Mark. I'm not saying he did that today, because he actually said he'd call me back, and he didn't. Okay. But all the rest of them were referring to Mark. So that tells me that a lot of these people don't know what's going on. They thought it was open shut case, and now they're in crossfire between two departments.
Here's one of my other problems. With the story, the way it runs is, well, I was just trying to save the taxpayers' money, and so I did this one thing because I had to, because I couldn't find Stephenie. Okay, then why weren't you at Stephenie's office first thing the next morning going, hey, Stephenie, I had to sign these things. I'm really, really sorry, but I had to because we're going to lose this money. But it sounds to me that he didn't tell Stephenie he did it.
That's
he
right.
waited until Stephenie found out when
That's
the paper
right.
came back.
Right.
So I have a hard time doing I did it because it was something I had to do right now. No.
Hillsdale's not a very big town. He could have drove across town.
Well, the other thing is, are they supposed to serve warrants and pick people up and do that stuff?
Right.
And you can't find an elected official, but you can find somebody that's missed out $75 on child support.
And sources said that Stephenie was here. She was on her lunch break or something of that nature. So I was,
it's the way Stephenie's pretty.
She's on point.
Well, Stephenie is almost. You can almost set your watch to what Stephenie does. She's in the office in the morning.
Yeah,
she goes to lunch,
Yep.
and then she does some errands in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Almost constant.
She is on point.
Yes.
It's a ridiculous. This is all ridiculous. I mean, you don't sign your name. You don't falsify names on reports.
Well,
it's just period.
That's like telling your teacher, I signed the report card because I couldn't find my parents.
So now it becomes a question. Now the county commissioners, what they're backing up or what they're supporting is that what Carl did or Undersheriff Albright did was not against the law.
And they have they have law degrees from where?
Yeah, well, this is the big hoopla. Is this against the law? So, is it against the law to forge someone's name on a document? Like, can I sign my mom's name on IRS paper to get a car or something of that nature. Like we have a 501c3. Can we sign names?
No.
Like can we sign Steve Wisdom's name here on paperwork and stuff like that?
Well, we can as
Might
long
wanna
as
get a
Steve
credit
doesn't
check
know about
first.
it. But if Steve finds out and he starts getting legal around to get us, then what we have to do is get ahead of the story and come out and say, "Oops, we did this," right?
Yeah.
So is it against John? So in your opinion, because you're not an attorney.
No.
But I mean, even I'm not an attorney either. But
I
on
can
face
read.
value,
But I can read the English language, and I know that stealing is wrong, lying is wrong,
That's
and
what I'm
killing
saying.
is wrong.
That's what I'm saying. Like almost like it's inherently, that it's wrong.
I think a child could look at this situation and tell you where the morality issues are.
When we start looking at so somebody asked me on social media, kind of drew me into the narrative and said, is this a crime? Well, I'm not going to say it is or isn't, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the English language of what the definition of these different things are, and you can decide,
And John,
right?
I didn't clarify. I actually like Mr. Albright.
A lot of people do.
He's a very pleasant guy to talk to, and he's always been pleasant when you talk to him.
That like I said, it every time he's pleasant, he
Right,
gets.
I know.
I don't know why we've got this idea that, well, if somebody's done 100 things right and they go ahead and murder somebody, we should let them go because they get to do that one wrong thing because they've done so many good things.
That only happens when you work for the government.
But on the same issue, I see the same mentality when they go, well, it doesn't matter. He spent 2 years in prison. He's a dirtbag. Okay, so because he's done 10 things wrong in his life, and because he got sentenced to prison unlawfully, that he has that coming because he's done 10 things wrong.
We talked this many times. We talked about this many times. For whatever reason, it's almost a double standard. We all know there's a double standard in the police department. That's what I was telling Julie Games today, that this is what the common folk on Facebook are seeing is the double standard.
Well, the two-tier legal system, right? Those that are above the law,
right,
and those that are under the law.
That's right.
This is what we can't have. We cannot have an us and them mentality.
On top of it, this has created a huge trust issue, not only within the sheriff's department, but this creates a huge trust issue within the treasurer's department. How many other people
within our county government?
Yeah, this isn't much different from what happened within the city with Mr. Stephen French. So, like, it creates trust issues. So, like, how many papers have been forged in that treasury department?
You don't know now.
Yeah. How many cases have Carl Albright lied on?
Don't know now.
Or forged?
Don't know.
These are the things. I tell you what, if I had a court case with him on it, I'd be pulling this up.
But
hey,
that's
he
what
lied on mine too.
That's what I'm saying. In the same thing happens in court, right? If somebody is caught lying, the first thing any good lawyer does is ask for all their testimony to be impeached, right? Because they lied. So now we don't know what they said is true or not. So thereby we can't take anything that they said. It's impeachable.
Right.
The same thing has to be true for everyone. Or the law. We are a nation of laws, not of men. And this is one of the most basic principles of Americanism. We are a nation of laws. This comes all the way from the 1100 Charters of Liberty up through the Magna Carta of 1215 to the British Bill of Rights of 1628.
Now, the county commissioners can take fault at not having a policy in place for something like this. They could have and this is something that what the commissioners and I talked about sort of today. If there's not a policy in place, well, there will be soon. So, like with department heads, as far as being able to sign names and stuff, because they can rubber stamp Marnie Cass's name. I got a feeling you can't.
Well, how about a warrant? How about can we sign a judge's name for a warrant?
Well,
Hit it with the rubber stamp.
Yeah, hit it with the rubber stamp. So, like with the Treasury Department, I'm assuming you can't do it with money because it's money. It's completely different, maybe something from like the clerk's office or something like that. But I'm not for sure. Money seems to be
bad dog, no biscuit. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Forgery is what's called a statutory crime.
Right.
Every crime has different elements, and all those elements have to be proven for the crime to be the crime. Right. Such as first-degree murder, you have to show an intent. You have to show where there was a lying in wait. So it wasn't a heat of passion killing. It was first-degree murder. So there's different elements of each crime that have to be shown. You've got CSC first-degree, CSC second-degree, third-degree. They all have different elements.
In statutory, you don't have to show the intent, correct?
Well, there's what's called things called statutory crimes, which mean just the act of doing it was the crime itself. It doesn't matter what your intent was. It doesn't matter whether it's just the act of doing it was the crime.
Right.
Forgery is one of those things. Now, there are...
So it doesn't have to be a successful forgery.
No, you don't even have to have intent to steal. All you have to have is an intent to fool, right? And did Carl want Ford Motor Company to think that
Or
it
the
was
IRS
his
or whoever the
signature,
paperwork was for.
that he did Stephenie's signature, or did he want them to think that it was Stephenie's signature?
Right. He wanted.
He wanted them to take that as a true document. Correct?
That's right. Yeah. That's
So
right.
that in and of itself is the intent to fool. So if we look at the elements of forgery under, you can go to uslegal.com, or you can even type in elements of forgery to go to uslegal.com /elements-of-forgery. Right? You can go there, and it's got the elements of forgery here. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read the English language, right? And I have the ability to critically think. So with those two things that everybody should be learning in school, forgery is the false making or material alteration of a writing where the writing has the apparent ability to defraud and is of apparent legal efficacy with the intent to defraud. Thus, the elements of forgery are. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different bullet points. So we're going to go bullet point 1 says false making. So this is forgery of false making. The person must have taken paper and ink and created a false document from scratch. Forgery is limited to documents, writings, including anything handwritten, typewritten, computer generated, printed, or engraved. Okay, this bullet point doesn't apply.
I agree.
So this is false making. So forgery also falls under the category of material alteration. That is, the person must have taken a genuine document and changed it in some significant way. It is intended to cover situations involving false signatures or improperly filling or improperly filling in blanks on a form.
That sounds like what he.
Okay, so there is no intent to steal. There is no intent to profit there.
Well, you could even argue that, John, that they're going to benefit with those vehicles with the price.
Sure, but we
have wanted to go that
it's
route.
not. It's not.
Saving money feels like a profit.
But it's not they or them. It has to be Carl.
Okay.
Carl
It's
will
his
not
department, though.
individually benefit.
Right.
Okay. So you can't do the they or them. You can't look at the sheriff's department because it's the whole sheriff's department isn't the one being that has committed something.
Hey, we don't know that all of them weren't standing behind Carl waiting for him to sign it.
Holding his hand. No, that didn't happen. Okay, that didn't happen.
Hey, we don't know if he was
Okay,
gonna
everybody join a chain. We're going to sign this
we
all
don't know if
together.
he was gonna get a
that
raise.
didn't
Yeah.
happen. Okay. So now the third bullet point: ability to defraud. Okay, that occurs when the document or writing has to look genuine enough to qualify as having the apparent ability to fool most people.
Oh, that falls for sure.
So that's there. Okay. Legal efficacy. The document or writing has to have some legal significance affecting another person's right to something.
Well, that falls.
The
right
interest
there.
rate.
Yeah.
Right? A writing of social significance cannot be the subject of forgery. So now we get that. Now that brings us to the last bullet point: intent to defraud. Okay, so they said his intent wasn't to profit.
Right.
Okay, intent to defraud, though, is the specific state of mind for forgery does not require intent to steal, only intent to fool people.
Oh, well.
The person must have intended that other people regard something false as genuine.
That's
A
the one.
forgery is complete upon having created such a document with this requisite intent.
So that's where it really falls in at.
So I don't think with any critical thinking skills at all and the ability to read that any of us can assume that this is not a crime. I think this falls absolutely under this last bullet point, intent to defraud.
Is there a MCL code that you know of offhand, John, that falls under?
Give me a second and I'll research it.
Yeah, okay. What do you think, Wisdom?
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious. I think you could be a child and look at this case.
Well, I mean,
for the sheriffs to say that they found no malice intent, I just feel like that's them.
I don't even know if the sheriff said that. So like the sheriff hasn't called me back, so I wanted to get his official comment on this. So I don't think the sheriff. I didn't see a paper that was released by the sheriff department saying.
No. The only information that I have on this is simply the article.
Yeah,
there is no.
We got a FOIA what was said a few months ago to the county commissioners and things of that nature,
right.
Because we don't know all the details per se. We're actually kind of rushing this out without having all the details, but we wanted to kind of.
Well, nobody knows anything.
Well, we got to get ahead of something, right?
Yeah, we got to get on top of the story.
I said that out loud.
We got to get on top of it before they do. Right?
Okay, I just very quickly Googled it, and I said Michigan law for fraud or forgery, and what comes up is forgery a felony in Michigan? This is Michigan Penal Code, subsection 750.250. Of course, the penal code in Michigan is 750, so it's a criminal code. Applies specifically to the forgery of notes or bonds issued for the debt of a state or municipality with the intent to defraud or injure. The maximum sentence for committing this felony is 7-year imprisonment.
See you in 7 years, Carl.
So we, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up Michigan compiled law 750.252 or 250, and then there's also if you are found in possession of counterfeit checks, you can so there's different parts. The 750 250 probably starts the forgery fraud portion of the criminal. So let's go to MCL 750.
You go ahead and read it down. What I'm wondering too is obviously someone like Neil Brady. A lot of people I see headhunting Neil Brady on this, right?
Sure.
I don't know.
It might not even have made it to his office.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We don't even know that.
Yeah, we don't know because I actually forgot to call him today. So that's another person that I should have called to get a statement.
But is the Fox watching the hen house? Are the police investigating the police?
Yeah, of
Seems
course.
to me that they should have a citizens advisory council.
Well, we'll get into that at the end here, John. So So Neil Brady. I don't know if the prosecutor knows about it. One, two is. Could he really bring this to? Well, would it be a conflict of interest for him? I mean, he deals with these officers all the time. So does he have to recuse himself from this? And when he does, it goes up to the attorney general, I would assume. Like now, the rumor mill had it right away where it went over to another county,
right?
Whether it went to Coldwater or Lenawee or whatever.
Now, maybe I just watch too many TV shows, but isn't there like an IA, Internal Affairs, that investigates situations like this?
We don't have that.
We're just too small.
Hey guys. Michigan compiled law 750.250. Forgery of notes issued for debt of state or political subdivisions. Section 250 says, forgery of notes, etc., issued for debt of state, any person who shall falsely make, alter, forge, or counterfeit any note, certificate, bond, warrant, or other instrument issued by the treasurer or other officer authorized to issue the same of the state or any of its political subdivisions, which now encompasses Stephenie Kyser. Mm-hmm. Or municipalities with intent to injure or defraud, and we already found out that was fraud, right? Yep. To defraud, as aforesaid, shall be guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment in the state prison not more than 7 years.
Okay, so it's a pretty heavy felony too. 7 years felony is a pretty strong felony.
Well,
that
not
reads
more
almost,
than.
Right.
That's the maximum.
Right. But I mean, that's more than like theft of a.
I mean, the way that reads is pretty
straightforward.
Yeah.
It is pretty straightforward.
Well, I don't know if there's attorney. I mean, obviously, our prosecuting attorney's probably not going to pick something up.
Well,
like
you know
this,
what? But the thing is, the prosecuting attorney just doesn't pick things up and go, "Hey, I think I'm going to look into that." No, there's a process, right? We understand that right from the 1100s Charter of Liberty that sets up a process of government, right? So there's a process in government. Neil Brady doesn't just pick things up and go, well, I'm going to go with this.
So the
Neil
case
Brady
has to
have
him?
something brought to him,
Right.
an investigation where they say, okay, we found these elements, and then Neil Brady looks at that and decides whether those elements make up what would be a crime that he could charge.
Well, print it out. I'll take it up there.
No, it's whoa there, Jim.
Well, John,
It's not quite that easy.
John, during your campaign run, and even to this day, I always talk about when I'm talking out to people, regular people, I always tell them you don't want an ex-cop or you don't want a current sheriff deputy or anybody that's tied into the system as sheriff because you got the fox guard and the hen house,
Well,
right?
our founding fathers intended it that way, and that's because
They intended not to have the fox guard and the hen house.
They intended. This is why in Michigan the law is written that any sheriff, and I get this all the time. People go, "What are your qualifications for sheriff?" Well, exactly what the law says my qualifications are. I'm over the age of 18. I'm a registered voter in my district, and I have no felonies, so I'm a qualified candidate for sheriff. Okay.
I don't. Is felony that qualifies?
Yeah,
you got to be an upstanding citizen or whatever.
It can't be an issue of trust.
Okay.
Okay. So, which kind of throws Carl out for being sheriff now. But anyway,
Well, not technically.
well, not by the commissioner's thing. But anyway, getting back to it. The sheriff, it says in the Michigan law that the sheriff upon being elected and taking office has 30 days to appoint a qualified person from his county to be the undersheriff. Now, what that says is that the person must be from the same district, must be from the county. So you can't have somebody from outside the county, and qualified person. So when we start looking at it, qualified person by Black's Law Dictionary says that they have to have the requisite training, certification, qualifications, or licensing.
Yeah, MCOL certified.
Yeah,
is
so
what it is in Michigan.
in Michigan, it's MCOL certified. Now, MCOLS, for our listeners, MCOLS stands for the Michigan Coalition on Law Enforcement Standards. Now, that is a group that's made up of sheriffs. It's made up of I believe it's made up of legislatures, and it's also made up of just some common folk that are on this group. And what they do is they meet and they decide what the requisite qualifications need to be for someone to have a certificate of law enforcement in the state of Michigan to do the job of law enforcement. Now, the reason why the undersheriff has to have that, and understand Burkhart, our undersheriff, didn't have that, is because the undersheriff is the one that does the daily law enforcement with the officers.
The day-to-day operation.
The day-to-day operations. The sheriff is an administrative figurehead that is supposed to be the check and balance, the oversight of that department. Now, the reason why it was set up that way, that it's not you have to have an MCOL certification to run for sheriff, is because our founding fathers understood checks and balances and separation of power.
Yes.
They did not want the fox in charge of the hen house.
So, like, John, for an example, if you became sheriff, you couldn't be friends with any of the deputies.
Well, I like to practice what George Washington said our foreign policy should be. I'm friendly to everyone, but I'm no one's friend.
Yeah.
Not even yours.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, I have to make sure that I am watching that everything is done fair, that the equal protection of the law stands for everyone, and that everyone is treated.
So you can't go out and have beers with the guys.
No,
with the department.
Here's the thing. Ethics isn't about whether you did or didn't do something to change the outcome of something. It is whether the appearance is there that you could have, right? So anytime the sheriff's department is involved in something, this is the same reason why. Let's look at the accident that happened out on Bear Lake in South Hillsdale Road, right?
Yep.
When that happened,
Which one is that, guys?
when the sheriff's the sheriff's accident out there, the bad one.
Is that the one where that guy ran the stop sign?
I don't know.
Or allegedly ran the stop sign?
I'm not even going to talk about it
Is
because
allegedly on his laptop.
well,
Is that what it was, Steve?
okay.
I'll let Steve say it. I
Okay,
don't really
first
know.
off, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know all of the details
Well,
of
you
that
don't
one.
talk about it, but Steve can.
Well, but let me
Actually,
finish.
okay,
let
go
me
ahead.
finish my thought here.
Go ahead.
My thought is the whole reason why they called the state police to do that accident investigation is because the sheriff's department was involved in that accident. The same thing is true if the state police are involved in the accident. The state police are not supposed to investigate the accident. That's why they call in the county sheriff, right? They call a sheriff's deputy in
Makes
to
sense.
investigate it. The reason why is because to the public, there needs to be this transparency that there isn't some favoritism going on. So this is what kind of bothers me when in this particular story about the undersheriff doing what he did, that an outside agency was not called in to investigate. It was handled in-house. And of course, now our county commissioners are acting as lawyers and deciding what is and is not legal and whether there were or were not crimes committed. And then it just dropped.
Well, that's
and
why.
then all of a sudden, almost not 60 to 90 days later, it's sprung on the public. Now this, if they want to know why Facebook is blowing up in social media, it's because of the optics. It's because there is no it looks like there's no oversight.
Looks like there's some double standard there too.
Definitely.
It creates the opinion and the optics of a two-tier legal system where you've got those that are above the law and those that are under the law.
Well, that's what
and we cannot have that.
That's the first question if Scott Hempner, Chief Hempner, calls me back tomorrow. I was going to say, are cops above the law? I was going to ask him directly. Are police above the law?
And see, one of the very principles of our country, one of the very principles that we're founded on is that we are a nation of laws and not of men, which means even the government and the government officials are under the law. The law applies to all.
I mean, Steve, you're common folk. We said it, but I mean, you think it gives off that appearance to you too, right?
Clearly. I mean, come on. It's like we checked, guys. We didn't do anything. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Keep moving on.
We checked, guys. Don't worry.
Nothing to see
I mean,
here.
we watch those videos all the time on the internet.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
This is like one of those videos.
I looked at myself and I decided I committed no crime.
I tell my kids that all the time. I said, who are you going to tell? You can't get the boss in trouble.
Well, during the campaign, ironically, I use actually Undersheriff Albright a lot of time in an analogy because I always talk about you got to hire an administrator, not someone that's tied into the system. I always say, what if Undersheriff Albright pulled your wife over? He thought your wife was pretty. To get out of that ticket, you got to do something. Ha ha ha. Now, I use this as an analogy all the time, and I don't think Carl would ever do that. But
no, Carl.
I would.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm just saying.
You're just using it as an analogy.
Using it as an analogy, and it's just ironic that this comes up like this.
Well,
so,
it's not ironic. In 2016, I predicted two things.
Well, John, who can you complain to if the undersheriff is best friends with the sheriff? Who
Exactly.
can you complain to?
Exactly. Now here's the thing. That doesn't mean that the sheriff and undersheriff can't be friendly.
Sure. I mean, they work together every day. They're bound to be some
They're
sort
going
of
to
friends.
be friends.
Yeah.
And this is why it was so important last time I campaigned to have a citizens advisory group, right? Because you cannot have the police investigating the police. The same thing as if you've got a sheriff and an undersheriff that are friendly with one another or even friends, what needs to happen is it's an ethical question, right? My grandfather told me a long time ago, if you can do something and someone can suggest that it was wrong and someone else can believe it, then ethically you're wrong already. Because you have to be so far above reproach that, number one, no one can suggest that you did something wrong. And number two, even if somebody did, no one would believe it. That is being above reproach. That is the ethical question. So what you have to have is a citizens advisory council where the citizens themselves have their republic government, their people from their own district, people who they know, people who they trust, people that they see every day, that set in overwatch of that very situation.
And this was
the
your
sheriff
This was
and
your
the
platform.
undersheriff.
This is one of your platform ideas from last time. And
Exactly.
It's going to be
This
a
is
major platform
exactly
idea
what I
this
said.
time, especially after this.
Now, why was the reason for that? And the reason is because I'm human. There's no one that's 100% evil, nor is there 100% good. Even myself, I can be. Lord Acton said,
Whoever that is.
Okay, you should be sitting in my classes if you don't know who that is. Shame on you. Lord Acton said that absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's
Oh,
the
he's
saying.
he's the one that coined that.
He's the one that coined that.
Okay.
Now, our founding fathers understood that, and that's the whole reason to the balance, to the separation of power and the checks and balances that are there. Now, there's something else that he said. He said all great men are almost always bad men. Because he says when you get to a position of power like that, you can be drunk with power. So you will look at things completely different than you looked at things before.
Right.
Now, I understand I'm a human being. That means I am susceptible to that same situation.
That's sure.
So the only thing I can do is put people that have a better set of eyes that won't be drunk with that.
Well,
to
this
look
is that
at
Citizen
those
Advisory Board.
situations.
We got, I think, 18 communities in our county, and
18 townships.
Yeah, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to take
one person
a
from each
volunteer
one.
from each community to be that Citizen Advisory Board. So you, as the sheriff, answers to the Citizen Advisory Board.
Absolutely. So, and the way that would work is if somebody has a complaint against the sheriff's department, they can go to their person from their township and say, hey, I got a problem. This is what happened. That person then can come in with other people of different townships and look at the same thing. Now, what's going on is you got more than just one set of eyes looking at it. So you get people looking at it from different perspectives. And it's not the people that are involved.
And it's the people investigating. So, like, say, if something like this situation, those people would be brought in, they would investigate it, and they would come to the conclusion that, yes, he did do something wrong, or no, he didn't do nothing wrong. But they would suggest, John, we think you need to fire this person, or John, we need to criminally press charges on this person.
Or it might come down to this. No, we have investigated it and nothing happened. Now you have true transparency because now the people can say, okay, there is nothing to see here, and we can trust that. This is what builds the actual trust in government and transparency. When the people have the opportunity to oversee their government.
And since this is a volunteer, non-paying position, and it's one of each community, it's hard to say, like, oh, they're all conspiring at that point.
Well, and the other thing is, in my idea is drawing from our founding fathers and what their ideas were. If you look at in Article 1 of the Constitution, the way they set the Senate up, they bring in all the senators, 2 from each state, and you've got a first class, a second class, and a third class. So they set and they're changed at different times. The reason for that is so that you've got continuity, number one, and number 2, that you've got new people coming in all the time, because this deals with the effect of faction. It doesn't breed faction, and it doesn't try to deal with the cause of faction. So we would do the same thing in a Citizens Advisory Council, such as we would do it in a first class, second class, third class, and fourth class.
It's not.
So what would happen is 25% of the board would change every quarter, but everybody would serve 1 year. So if you understand, 25% of the 18, and I would go alphabetical order, townships, alphabetically. So if we do 18, I think it'd be 4, 3, 4, 3. And 4, 4 is 8, 6, 6, and 8, right?
I don't know.
So we'd go 4, 3, 4, 3. So the first 4.
I dropped out of school, John.
So the first 4 in alphabetical order would, they would change on January 1st. And then on April 1st, the next 3 in alphabetical order would change. And then
you have to do it so often.
So
I mean,
on.
What about it like every 6 months or something?
No,
Quarterly?
every quarter. Every quarter.
That's just a lot of people. I don't know if you get that many volunteers.
No. Trust me.
I mean, I think you could figure that out.
Because the other thing is, here's what I like to do. The same thing that our founding fathers did with the Electoral College. Each state gets to choose how they're going to do that. This way, you've got different modes across the country. So if we use that same principle here in the county, each township and each township board would decide how they would determine the volunteer, either by appointment from the township board. They can do,
or maybe they can do both. If nobody volunteers, then they can appoint.
They can do a volunteer from
that would work.
They can do a volunteer from a particular township meeting that they're going to hold,
right,
and by a raise of hand, right?
Yeah. Like an unofficial jury duty.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like they have to hold an $8,000 election to put. That's not. It doesn't have to be like that. So what we can do is maybe Camden Township does it by an appointment by the board. Adams Township does it by by a show of hands
Or a lottery.
or a lottery.
Yeah,
all that.
A hat draw.
That's right. So what would happen is different townships would come up with different modes of doing this. What this does is this guarantees that there's not going to be any type of a faction that can form, or any type of a supermajority, or any type of a conspiracy.
Right, and you can make it bipartisan. That way, there's no
Absolutely.
party affiliate.
Absolutely. No.
I
No
mean, your position,
affiliation at all.
the sheriff position alone should be bipartisan in the first
Well,
place.
there's pros and cons to all of that, and yes, I lean more and more as I get older that the sheriff should be elected like the judges. It should be nonpartisan, because the sheriff has to enforce the law equally among all the people the same way,
Right.
regardless of
Which is
their
good
party
logic.
affiliation. And and that can be intimidating to some people depending on how strong their party affiliation is. So
Yeah, because you're not a fan of liberals per se, but now they could be intimidated that you ran on a Republican ticket, and that might be.
well, the thing is, they don't know whether I'm a fan of liberals or not because I'm on a party ticket, right? I mean, let's face facts. Nobody gets voted in Hillsdale County unless they run on a Republican ticket. So as well as I do, we got
rhinos everywhere.
We've got rhinos that are more Democrats than anything else, but they've got an R behind their name. You know it, I know it. Let's just say it. Let's just say it for what it is. That is just the common truth of Hillsdale.
So at the end of the day, Undersheriff Albright did sign Stephenie Kyser's name on 2 pieces of paper, according to Stephenie, what she told me.
And by Carl's own admission.
And by his own admission. Well, it didn't say that.
Yes,
that he
it
signed,
did.
it said they signed his name twice on the same paper?
No, it
there's not
says
2
that he
signatures.
signed her
Yeah,
name.
okay.
Yeah, I didn't
On
know
a
there was
paper.
2 signatures.
Also, something that wasn't mentioned in there that Stephenie told me directly was that when she called down there, they lied to her. That alone shows intent, in my opinion.
Well, not only that, forgery is lying, and then they lied again. So again,
now this is by her
impeached-
admission, though. Whether it's true or not, I'm not going to sit there and tell you. I'm just telling you what she told me.
Okay, but just based on those facts.
Lied about what?
Well, she called down there and said, "Hey, what the hell is this?"
Yeah,
And she didn't say directly. She said they lied to me. So whatever that meant.
Right.
They
Gave her
also-
the runaround
Yeah,
or something.
she said they gave her the runaround. I think that's a lot of reason why she's upset too. Here they are
I
playing
would be.
games.
They didn't treat her with any respect. huh?
Exactly. Where was the respect
Lack
there?
of
Right.
respect, and she's an elected official.
I don't blame her, because if they did that for me, I tell you what, it would be a big stink. I can tell you that right
Yeah.
now.
I wouldn't take it lying down.
Yeah.
Well, you know me.
Yeah.
I
Well, I'm wondering if they because
I don't take libel lying
The-
down either. So
that branch or that department is already smugged in the first place. They're smuggish every time I go in there. Not Carl per se, but
you're talking generally as a department.
General as a department, they're smugged, and
I've heard the same complaint by other people.
I mean, at least my experience is there, personally, and so I can only assume or think of, when you got a female calling down there, like get the hell out of
Yeah,
here.
quit.
Don't be
quit
sexist.
calling us.
You know?
Doesn't matter who calls down there; they shouldn't be smug to anyone.
Right, exactly. So I can only imagine,
Now,
this is a
let's-
very dynamic
there-
situation.
There's another thing we haven't touched on here, and this bothers me just a little bit too. Dinesh D'Souza, we went up to Livingston County and listened to him.
Yep.
And he
You
was
should have
telling.
been there, Wisdom.
I wish I
yeah.
was.
Oh
yeah.
man, that was so powerful. He's such a great person. His wife is such a sweet person too. But anyway, he told the story of how they went after him because he had given too much money to one of his buddies running for office, and he was just trying to be nice about it. He didn't have any intent of breaking the law either. But when he wrote the check and he put it in an envelope and then he put it in the United States Federal Post Office box and it got sent in the post office, they charged him with mail fraud.
Oh, really?
So forgery being sent through the U.S. mail almost always gets charged with mail fraud as well.
So even if they drop the forgery charge,
Why
they'll
weren't
make a deal.
There wouldn't be no such thing as forgery by mail then.
yeah.
Right, but if this is the case, why haven't other agencies looked into this so that I can say, oh, okay, the state police said nothing happened here. Oh, and by the way, the FBI said no mail fraud either. Okay, now I've got 2 different agencies looking at something, and I can go, okay, I've got a little bit better. I got a little bit better feeling that there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know something happened. I think on face value, we all know something's wrong here.
Yes.
I mean, all of the public all has the same unison.
I mean, at least the public online.
Right.
There's quite a bit of people. I mean, it's not just 10 people.
Well, there's.
Right.
There's a few that are going to go. Nothing happened. They said nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Well, I mean, that's
okay.
1 out of 100, though. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a
I
couple.
haven't-
I mean,
Yeah.
you guys seen the comment numbers?
I'm telling you
it's
guys,
huge.
people are tagging the FBI in this thread.
Well, not only that, the thing that bothers me is there's so much trust eroded that people are calling for Neil Brady's head, and he might not even have had anything. We don't even know that he even knew about it.
Okay.
And then we also have people calling for the heads of the county commissioners.
Right, like they're involved in it. or
Well, we've
something.
got. I've heard all day today. I've heard the rumblings of recall.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's how. That's.
and we're talking big money, and that's my tax money.
Well, that's what I was telling Julie earlier today. Is people have a lack of trust in government in the first place. And when something like this
Well,
happens,
yes.
it's just so dynamic.
And it drives the stake deeper.
Oh yeah.
It drives the stake deeper. They got to get ahead of this.
Each one of them should have had a public statement.
Absolutely.
Really?
My representative should have sent me an email.
How-
She's got it.
If I was Adam, the mayor, I would have made a damn statement.
Yeah.
Like
I was not there. I didn't see anything. I didn't do anything. I don't even know if I was in town.
these are some unfortunate events.
Yeah.
Like
Sorry to
something.
hear about it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, if anybody watches any of the mainstream media, you could see the turmoil that our country is in, and to have something that is something like this,
well, this is a position of trust. This is something.
really,
And this bothers me more.
and it's so close to home.
National government issues don't bother me as near
You
as bad as
expect
local
this out of
government.
national government,
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
expect this out of local
But
government.
local government has more power. Local government affects me directly. National government doesn't.
That's why it's so
this
disheartening.
yeah, that's right, and that's where the distrust comes even further.
You know what? And to be fair, Carl Undersheriff Albright is a good guy, so that even makes it even harder.
Right, and it's like this: if your brother does you bad, it's one thing, but when your spouse does you bad, it hurts worse, right?
Yeah.
Because it's closer. So when the national government does me bad, I pretty much expect it. But when my local government does me bad, it's like my spouse doing me bad.
Particularly the sheriff department.
Yeah.
Exactly, because that is huge. I mean, we have to have trust there. But if you remember 4 years ago, I predicted a lot of this happening.
Through the leadership.
Lack of leadership and also the lack of business savvy.
Yeah, because the millage failed. He wanted $1 million more.
Right, and I predicted that. I predicted that.
Now they want a new jail.
I predicted that.
You got lawsuits that are still open pending on the sheriff.
Right.
You got deputies arguably running through stop signs and injuring parties.
Without lights and siren.
Yeah. You said it, not me.
Did I say that? I did say that. I did say that.
Undersheriff Albright is caught up in a
That
situation.
was eyewitness testimony.
Undersheriff Albright is caught up in a situation forging the treasurer's name. I mean, what the hell's going on down there?
Yeah, it sounds like this train's out of control.
And you know what? And now the commissioners are like, I don't know. They're pointing to Mark, and they're like, I don't know.
Yeah,
they're caught in the
it's almost
crossfire.
like a bad movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bad headline, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's disheartening. It's extremely
We got
disheartening.
Hillsdale College here. We're supposed to be promoting the Constitution.
We're supposed to
be
be
that
good.
beacon in this.
This is a nice little community. It's supposed to be, guys.
Well, the thing that bothers me the most is one of the founding core principles of this country is that we're a nation of laws and not of men, that there cannot be a two-tier legal system, that there's not a caste system. It has to be we are all, even government, we are all under the law.
Like, if they say he would have missed the deadline, Stephenie never signed it, they got screwed out of their lease deal, they had to go get a new interest rate. That's called being an adult and owning your mistakes. It happens to us all the time.
But at that point in time, does it fall on Carl's shoulders or does it fall on Stephenie's shoulders? It falls on Stephenie's shoulders. She's the elected official.
Right.
So Carl should not have said, well, you know what, it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
No, it's not. That was Stephenie's responsibility. Let Stephenie handle her responsibility.
Exactly. Let
She's
her
done a
win
good
and
job
lose
so
on
far,
her,
and she's done a very good job so far.
I've never heard anything bad about her.
Well, she did the auction she did. It was tremendous on the tax
For
properties.
that tax property, yeah.
Yeah, there's not many communities that do that and bring that money themselves back into the treasury.
Right.
She did a good job.
Well, this is how I view it, because ultimately, if there's a lawsuit, or ultimately, if we're going to be paying for it.
Yeah, we the people.
Unfortunately, now I don't necessarily encourage lawsuits per se, but whatever the sheriff department has coming, has it coming. Yeah. That's how I look at it. Like
Everybody has to be responsible for each one's individual action. We all have to be.
Whether it's nothing or whether it's something. I mean, I, in my opinion, if it was me, I'd be seeking it forward. Sorry, gentlemen, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah,
I would too. And the sad thing is, anybody that does that, then of course they get marginalized by the county board, going, well, all these people seeking frivolous lawsuits.
Oh yeah,
well,
yeah,
it's
of
not,
course.
It's not frivolous when your signature's been signed,
right,
but
exactly.
it's frivolous when mine's been
Yeah,
signed.
yeah. Hey, that seatbelt ticket was frivolous. Why'd you give me it?
right.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Well, when my rights are violated, it's not frivolous to me.
Right, exactly.
But
So
you might think it is, but it's not to me.
we talk about victimless crimes. There is a victim here.
Yes, this is not a victimless crime.
Right, there is a victim.
There is a victim. And the thing is, if you want to look larger into the philosophy of this, the entire county, all of the people of the county were a victim of this.
Yeah. Every time there's a mistake like this, the county, we're all victims.
That's right, because when it comes down to who's going to pay, raise your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Raise your hand, because it's you.
That's why we need to get that, qualified immunity out.
Well, as much as I love Judge Scalia, and you guys know that, you guys know Judge, there are, nobody's 100% good, nobody's 100% bad, but there were a couple bad things that Judge Scalia did in some of his rulings, and that was he ascribed, in my opinion, way too much qualified immunity to government officials.
Yeah.
In
my opinion.
And this unintentionally started this it didn't start it, but it furthered the two-tier system.
That is, right, Steve? Qualified immunity?
Yeah, well, since I'm in this position, I can't get in trouble.
Well, that means you can't punch me, but I can punch you because I've got a monopoly on force.
Yeah, so they can't get in trouble for what they do wrong.
So
Pirates.
Yeah, so they can't get in trouble. So they got qualified immunity
on certain things, and it does get stretched quite often.
Also, they our insurance pays for that. So if they were to have to provide their own insurance, now we talk about
and see, that's part of the problem with the 1983 lawsuit. Just let me hit on
go
that
ahead.
real quick. The 1983 lawsuit started in 1877. And it didn't get used for the first time until about 1963 or 1964. I can't remember exactly on my history on that. But what the 1983 lawsuit was there for was basically it started in the South when the newly emancipated slaves were going to different parts of the communities in the South. And people would come by and do horrible, unspeakable things to their community. And, of course, they would call law enforcement. Law enforcement would come, the local sheriff, who was also part of the same ilk that did this to their community.
You mean like KKK?
Yeah, would come in and say, oh, well, there was no crime here. The federal government had to get involved at that point in time, and they said, you know what, people aren't getting equal protection of the law. But the executive branch government has what's called discretionary authority, and we have to have discretionary authority within the executive branch to ensure justice, because Madison said in 51 that the ends of government is justice. So the only reason for government is justice. So we have to ensure justice.
This is for an example, like judges, they can't get in trouble because
No.
Okay.
Discretionary authority means
discretion. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Discretionary authority is like the president has the ability to pardon people even though they've been sentenced to death or sentenced to whatever. Even though a jury said it, they have that authority to pardon.
Just like a cop has authority not to give you the seatbelt ticket.
Police officer has an authority. This is why in Castle Rock v. Gonzalez, basically Scalia said the police have no constitutional duty nor the ability to protect anyone. True. And that's because they have a discretionary authority. They get a 911 call. They don't have to show up, and you can't sue them if they don't.
By the way, the Bud Light was a good idea, Steve.
Yeah.
So anyway, anyhow.
Bud Light, if you're listening, we do accept sponsorships.
I think the Sunkist was a good idea. But anyhow, and the Girl Scout cookies anyway. So, and coffee from PS. But anyway, getting back to the 1983, the federal government had a choice. They could say, okay, look, we can take the discretionary authority away from the police, the executive branch of government, but they couldn't do that. Number one, it's in the Constitution, and number two, it goes against liberty. It would not ensure liberty. It would not ensure justice. So what they said was, okay, what we need to do is we need to put people that operate under the color of the state or under the color of law in a position that if they go above and beyond their authority and they do it in a malicious or capricious way, or they neglect their duty in a capricious or malicious way, that they can be held personally liable, not the citizens, but themselves personally liable, where they could lose their fortunes or their homes or those things. Because that then, by natural law, would put them in a position where they would want to do the right thing or have to do the right thing to keep from losing what they've worked for.
In today's society, they're not losing anything.
No, because what we've done is we've put them under county insurance policies that we pay for. And then when they violate the law, we don't fire them. We just go ahead and keep paying the insurance. And let me use a quote from Mr. Wiley during the Anthony Hart case. Well, that's why we have insurance.
Or we cycle them into the other department in the same community.
Right.
Exactly.
I
need to get a job like that.
If
I can't get
in
fired.
business, if I have an employee that has continuously gotten me sued, I'm an idiot. If I got sued by their actions the second time, they would be gone.
What was the quote by George Bush that he screwed up?
It says, fool me once.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
We got a saying in Texas. You might have a saying in Tennessee that's really the same. I never get fooled again. I really miss listening to that guy talk. I really do.
But anyway, so this 1983 lawsuit, this is what this came about. And this was supposed to curb this abuse of power, or this not equal protection of the law. It was supposed to make things it was supposed to even the playing field a little bit. But we've kind of lost the idea of it in the 21st century where, well, that's why we have insurance. Well, if I've got insurance on my truck, that's why I've got insurance, and I run it into a tree and the insurance pays for it, do you think if I keep running my truck into the tree...
What's that word that I'm looking for? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Fraud.
Well, obviously that's not a problem, is it? But my point is, if I've got car insurance and I run my truck into the tree and they pay for it, and then a week later I run my new truck into the tree and they pay for it, and then another week later I run my truck into the same tree, what does my insurance company do? First, they try to curb my behavior by jacking my rates up.
Yeah,
and then when my rates get to a certain point, they just go, you know what?
They don't insure
We're
you
not
at
going to
all.
insure you anymore. You're uninsurable. Well, what happens when a county becomes uninsurable?
Then the taxpayers pay everything.
No.
Right?
Same thing as when a person becomes uninsurable, they have to come up with enough money to secure a bond. So when a county or a municipality becomes uninsurable, they have to come up with enough money to bond themselves. They have to self-insure. I'm telling you right now, if we don't have enough money in the budget to do the things that we have to do,
Yeah, like right now.
how are we going to come up with enough money to bond ourselves so that we can continue?
I wonder how far that is. Like how far until you're uninsured?
Well, I don't know. Our county commissioners were just whining about that this year.
It only takes one big lawsuit.
Where
I
do
would
we get
assume.
our insurance policy through? State Farm?
No, with what is it? Safe
You're in
driver
good hands?
benefits, safe fraudulent benefits, safe forgery benefits.
It only takes one big lawsuit and we're bankrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
do they have a forgery forgiveness program in State Farm?
I think
Just
you have to
wonder.
be a member.
I know they've got an accident forgiveness program.
So at the end of the day, this comes down to whether was it against the law what he did. I in my opinion, which I'm not a legal scholar, but it just appears that it is against the law.
I mean, the interpretation is not really hard on this one. Like, I understand, like, sometimes legal issues become lost with interpretation, but none of us are lawyers. I mean, and we read this pretty easily.
No, but Steve, if it's illegal, then he should not be under qualified immunity at that point.
Right.
No, because yeah, that's exactly it.
And then they're going to have union issues if you fire him and stuff. I don't know if
no, he's not in the union.
Oh, okay, because he's
upper administration.
Upper administration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not in the union.
Okay, good.
So in reality, we need an interpretation by.
Yeah, we got to figure out who's going to interpret.
Okay,
that.
in common law, if you sign someone else's signature, basically
it's
we can
blatantly
say in common
obvious
law,
for
it's
me,
law.
John.
It's wrong.
Blatantly
it's
obvious
against
for
the
me.
law. So I know I'm not a legal scholar, but I'm gonna risk going out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say I think it's a crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's not to say that I'm saying everything that Mr. Albright has done is a bad thing. He's been
Right.
a
Like you
very
said,
good
we're
man.
all
He's done
human.
a lot of good things. But the fact of the matter is, if I married 35 years and everything's good, and I've had a good relationship with my wife, and I go out and I cheat one time, am I still held responsible because I cheated? Yes. You have to be held responsible for the action you did. It doesn't matter how good of a husband you've been for 35 years. If you cheated, you violated the trust, and now you have to start all over with the trust, and you have to be responsible for
Didn't
what
they
you did.
kill that dog at the end of Old Yeller for biting that kid?
Yeah,
Well, no, they did it because they did it because Old Yeller used all the toothpaste. Didn't you see how he was?
That's
flossing?
funny, Steve.
Just
wow.
saying.
Wow.
Oh.
But he was a good dog all that time.
Yeah, he was a good dog.
Oh, and rumor has it that Undersheriff Albright was going to step down, but
Right.
But Sheriff Parker and Commissioner Mike Riley convinced him not to step down. That there's no big deal.
Then we got a bigger problem, because I'll tell you what. Here we've been saying Mr. Albright's been very good all this time, and I think Mr. Albright, that was the honorable thing, and I would have had
agree.
a lot more respect for him at that point in
Yes,
time.
sir. I agree.
So just that he suggested that he should, I've got a lot of respect for him at that. Now I've got less respect for Sheriff Parker and less respect for Mr. Wiley.
Yeah. Hey, he should have probably stepped down.
And if he was willing to, that's like, for me, self-admittance. He's like, all right, yeah, you caught me.
Well, that's doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
That's doing the right thing.
Right.
Hey, nobody's 100% good. Nobody's 100% bad.
I stand by
But
that.
if you're going to admit to your mistakes and take what I used to tell my kids that, look, I don't care whether you break the rules or not, but if you break the rules, you know what's coming. I don't want to hear any whining about the responsibility that you got to take.
These commissioners don't have to hold any responsibility per se to what happened there, but at least have a statement saying, we don't condone this type of activity. We, have a statement prepared already. Everybody that's in leadership should have some sort of statement. Like my township supervisor should have some sort of. They're in government. This is our county. This is our sheriff department. I would assume that. I wonder what Scott Burns thinks of this. I want to know what he thinks.
Yeah.
Is he upset about this?
I don't know. Let's go have some fish and chips and ask him.
Yeah. I want to know what I want to know. I want to know what Glenn Frobel thinks of this, because he's in a government position.
Oh, I already know he told me, but anyway.
Yeah. So I want to know what our leadership is saying about this, because I tell you what, it's all the common folk that are talking. I don't see much leadership talking on those boards.
No, seems quiet.
But wait a minute. That's the problem, is because there is no leadership if they're not talking, right?
Lack of leadership.
So
everybody's
the
scared.
reason why they're
don't know
not,
what to say.
The reason why they're not talking is because there is no leadership.
I mean, you can go, well, if it's true, then I disagree with it. They could say that at least, right? Come on, man. Like, let's speak up. Because this obviously there's something wrong.
Yeah. It's
We're just gonna push it under the rug. We're just gonna push this under the rug.
If this many people can see it.
I don't think the public's gonna let this go either.
No, this goes to the heart of America right here.
Yeah,
this goes to
put a bitter taste in.
This
people's
goes to the core issue of: are we a nation of laws? Or are we a nation of men?
I told Julie that it's already on the works to the AG. I can tell you right now, it's already going to go there. I mean,
Well, I already know somebody that's making a complaint.
yeah. See,
to the
there you go.
AG.
You know, so it's already going to go there. So I don't know if the AG, that's again the Fox Garden and Hen House a lot of times. So we'll see what their opinion is.
Maybe
we'll
they're
see.
far enough away from us that they're not going to back them like they.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, but here's the thing. This is what it's going to take, and this is what it should have taken right from the get-go. Another agency coming in and looking at it, or a Citizens Advisory Council looking at it, and somebody saying, okay, it wasn't the same people that investigated themselves and said there's nothing to see here.
With that being said, not only should I hope Chief Hebner calls me back tomorrow, but I'm going to call the state police tomorrow to see what their opinion is on this.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about it. I'm saying like,
Well, I mean, no, I don't know if like Jackson Paper picked it up. Maybe someone should suggest it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've had, yesterday when this all hit, my phone was blowing up. It's gone far and wide. I had people calling me from quite a distance away, going, "What in the heck is going on in that town?"
That's probably because they're friends on that page, though.
No. This was local news that they picked it up on.
Yeah, well, when my wife found out about it, my wife, she's not into politics at all.
No.
She hates it. And she was like, oh, my God, what is going on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's blatantly obvious. You don't have to know anything about politics to see this issue, guys.
Yeah, this rides up that alley of what the videos that we watch on YouTube and Facebook.
Public,
wow.
The public trust.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the public trust. I went into the bank one day and it said, our money is backed by
The FDIC, $250,000.
No, it said something about full faith and trust in the government. Okay, well, if my money is only backed by the full faith and trust in the government, how much did they devalue my money?
Yeah.
Because I have very little trust.
Yeah, a lot of people don't trust the banks, too.
Well, but I'm just saying, how much did they devalue everything when now we don't have this trust?
Well, I mean, local level is supposed to where the trust is. That's our last level of trust,
see this
right?
guy at the
That's our
gas
biggest
station.
level of trust.
We don't have no trust on the state level. We have no trust on the national level at all.
But local should be our biggest level of trust.
We don't trust corporations. We don't trust mainstream doctors.
I mean, Nestle's stealing how many millions of gallons of water every single day, and you want me to buy water from them?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
they didn't steal any from me.
The local level was like our last line of trust, man.
Right.
Now we're going to just.
No, that's not our last line of trust.
when I
That's
go
our
out to
first
eat,
line of trust.
I understand what you're saying, John, but I mean, like that's something that we should hold true to our heart, like hold close to us.
This is the trust that we have in our spouse on local level.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
The trust that we have in our
Like,
federal
I want to
government.
smile when I see these guys at the gas station, guys, and I don't feel that way.
Well, the other thing is I don't like things with failed trust. I don't like it when my local officials tell me I better watch out or I better be careful.
Well,
those kind of things I don't like either because I take those as veiled threats.
Yeah, well,
and veiled threats are against the law as well.
Right, I didn't bring that up.
Oh, I know you didn't. I'm just putting it out there.
All right. Well, I think we wrapped everything up. Anything else, Steve?
I mean, in one word, if you asked me how I felt about the situation, it'd be wrong.
Yeah, Rutan?
I feel violated.
Yeah. Well, I would say that definitely trust issues for myself now with the sheriff department, but I feel bad for Stephenie because she's the one that's the victim here, big time.
She's the first victim, but the people are the second victim.
I understand. I can only imagine what's going through her head now because how many times has this happened? Now, does she have to go back to all her paperwork?
Right. I mean, since
does she got to do an audit?
Well, the other thing is, why didn't she sign that paperwork? There must have been a good reason. Why didn't the paper find out what the good reason was that she didn't sign it?
If we didn't know so much about her, it shows incompetence, to be honest with you.
Well, we probably should ask. I mean, we haven't asked, so we don't know necessarily.
The only thing I could think of is she just didn't want to sign it.
But what Steve's saying is anybody that wouldn't know anything about the situation, let's say from Poughkeepsie, it plays well in Poughkeepsie. Let's say somebody from Poughkeepsie's looking at this and they're going, well, geez, they got a real incompetent treasurer then.
That's
and that's not fair.
Yeah, right.
That's not fair because we know her. We know she's not incompetent. It just gives
that appearance is what you're saying.
That's right. We know she's not incompetent.
Yeah.
So there's an issue.
Yeah, what if she, and this is an election race coming up here and her position's up for race. So
that's not,
that's not cool, right?
Not at all.
Well, I guess I mean I don't blame her if she was to move forward and see I wouldn't blame her.
I wouldn't blame her either.
No, I think it's only appropriate.
You know what? like you were saying, John, you're going to have people, oh, I would never sue or anything like that. She was in a subject of a lawsuit before. So now this is going to even make it look even worse for her.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Well,
for some people.
People
right?
got mad at me when I sued for libel because my character was assassinated, right?
Well, hers was too, essentially.
Yeah, essentially
God, yeah.
hers was too. So no, I'm not. I say she's 100. Your character is your possession.
So I'm not encouraging, but whatever she does, I'm not going to sit. I'm not passing judgment.
Like you said earlier, the sheriff department deserves what they get here.
All right.
Everybody has to be responsible for their individual actions.
Unfortunately, I'm willing to make a pretty sizable bet that we'll never hear about this ever again.
God bless everyone. Have a great night.
Read your constitutions.